Hi, my name is Jan Valiano. As Roger said, we're friends. It only started with Facebook friends, and then eventually I was involved in, I was asked to join Mara by Janini Izzo in Chapter 4, so I'm involved there. And then we went to go see Mark at a, what's that, Republican Stomp, and Mark Fisher in, what town was that?
Chelmsford.
Chelmsford, yeah. So that's when you asked me about possibly talking about the group, or to the group about my family's escape from Romania. And let me get the other cards that I'm missing, excuse me.
Jan, can you speak up a little?
Sure.
People can't hear you. Well, I'm being polite.
Yeah, our audio's down right now.
Where'd he go?
You could probably just do it without the car.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. Okay. So I was going to start with my introduction. My family and I came here in 1977 from Romania. We moved, we had sponsors in California, and that's where I've been for about 34 years. Had a lot of stuff going on in my life, and actually found someone out here online, believe it or not, through a game I used to play, and we've been together now for almost 2 years. So my life's really doing great here in Massachusetts, and I love the fact that I'm here where our country started. I love the fact that I see the same fervor that all the American patriots back then had it. I see it here, so it's just great to be here. So why is it important for me to talk about communism? You know, we don't see it here in the United States, at least.
You're talking to the wrong person.
Yeah, of course. But it's very important because, in fact, doing some more research on this, I actually met another person on Facebook. She lives in Texas, and she's got a law firm there in Texas. And she actually also, in 1988, became a political refugee and came out here to the United States. And she brought up some points that I never thought of. The interesting thing was that when Ceausescu came into power in 1965, Romania was still communist because, you know, Patton wasn't allowed to come and march into the Soviet Union. You know, communism really just took over. But what she was saying was that it went, and actually with Ceausescu, it went from communism to socialism, and that was mind blowing, because he was able to bring socialism in. It was less of a pain for people, or less of an opposition for people to say, no, you can't do this, no, you can't do that. And in fact, he wasn't a dictator up until he implemented his socialistic viewpoints. And here's another thing that what was fascinating about this was that what did he institute? He instituted a national curriculum. What do we have now?
Common Core.
Common Core. He used the children as a source of humanitarian thing. And what did he do? He took the guns away from the people. What's happening now? Our guns are being, or trying to take away. And then he also instituted a national health care. And what do we have? Obamacare. So that's why I feel it's important to talk about this. And anybody that I have a chance to, I will explain to them, look, I might have been a little boy, but my dad sponsored 350 families to the United States. Wow. So he was able to bring in legally 350 families here into the United States, because he says, God, you get me out of communist Romania, I'll do whatever I can for you. Wow. So the story goes back in, I'm not sure exactly what year, but I do remember one night, you know, my sister waking me up, my oldest sister, I have 8 brothers and 5 sisters. Wow. My oldest sister was kind of really like my mom. And the reason I do have that is because besides not having TV in Romania at the time, Ceausescu, he wanted a master race. So the law was you had to have 5 healthy children. So if your child had asthma, the state would take them away and put them in the orphanage. I mean, seriously, just Leo has asthma because he wanted perfect children to procreate, to become adults to procreate and have a perfect race. That's the kind of mentality he had. And so it wasn't until the revolution broke out in 1989 that the world found out that Romania had a huge incident with AIDS. Kids had AIDS. They were dying from AIDS. And the reason it was is because Ceausescu, building his palace, he built the second largest palace in the world next to the Pentagon. Because he's building this palace, he needs all this money. And so he's having the orphanages reuse the syringes for the kids. So, that's the kind of monster that he was. So my sister wakes me up, I'm not sure what time it was, and next thing I know is I'm being put on the back of a stake bed, and we're all, just going in the middle of the night, and here I am, a little kid thinking it's just a cool ride. Well, I'm wondering why I'm still, we didn't take any clothes, we didn't take anything, like, why are we doing this in the middle of the night? Then we get to the train station, what's going on? Why are we at the train? And I'm just still half asleep. And so we get onto the train, and as we're leaving Romania, even to this day, I could still taste what my last meal as we're eating. It was tomatoes, feta cheese, bell peppers, and canned ham. I could still remember that. And as I see Romania disappearing in the distance, 10, 13 hours later, something like that, it was quite a long trip. We get off the train to Austria. And as my dad's stepping off the train, some woman comes up behind him with a gun and tells him in Romanian, "Come on, you're going back onto the train." And I'll give you a backstory how my dad became a political refugee. But the United States government was obviously expecting us. And when we got off the train, they kindly escorted her away. And we stayed in Austria for 6 months while the American government was debriefing my dad. But at the same time, we were also waiting for, because we hadn't had our private sponsors yet. It was the church where we had friends in California were getting money and everything together, and they wanted to make sure that if we had any issues, we could stay with a certain family or several families, depending on, because of our large family. And so we were, it waited 6 months to get that. We got proper documentation. Within about a week, before we had left Romania, my dad got a job at the shipyards in Long Beach, California. So the backstory is, why were they trying to kill him? Well, the communist governments, at least in Romania, they really didn't want to kill you. What they really wanted to do was mess with your head. And their biggest thing was to put you in an insane asylum. Because they knew that if they can break you and put you in an insane asylum, they can do that to everybody else. If they kill you within a week to maybe a month or a few months, you're history. People know that you're in an insane asylum. Like, man, that could be me. So that's what they try to do to him. Well, my dad, having the fervor that he had, he, in the streets, he would preach about God. And they didn't like that, of course, in an atheistic society. So he was making enemies with the communist government. But then he also did a lot of things that people liked. He got friends in interesting places. One time we had an incident where after my mom's, I think it was my sister, my brother's birth, she had passed away. Temporarily, apparently, from what the doctors were saying. She was dead for about 27 hours. And my dad had called a friend, and they were praying for her. And the doctor, just who basically felt he failed, communist doctor, he started to pray. And next thing you know, after all this other time, this hard communist doctor, he couldn't believe his eyes when my mom started moving and everything else, and she had a few children after that.
That's a good part.
But the thing is, because of what my dad did, and he did not give up, he turned communists into nationalists, and to people who were saying, you know what, we don't need this communist system anymore. And as they would put my dad into nut hospitals to try and quiet him down, well, he made all these friends. And he somehow, because he's got the same name as I do, so where did Yambayana go? Oh, well, he was discharged. By who? And nobody would say by who. But the main reason, the reason they really started wanting to kill him, because they had enough of him. They really did. And we were leaving church I'm not sure if it was the summer, but we were leaving church one day, and he witnesses these cops run this guy off the road, and they did it on purpose. And when the guy still came out and it still was alive, my dad witnessed that he shot him. This is stuff I'm getting from my brothers and sisters later on, in life as we're discussing this stuff. Well, he witnessed this murder, and apparently the guy that they killed was someone that they've been trying to get rid of for a long time. And he didn't know that's what was going on. So he says, well, okay, if the police are not going to listen to me, obviously, because they did it, I'm going to go to somebody above him. And he kept going finally to where he actually got in front of Ceausescu. And he, bless my dad, he did some crazy things, but he got his point across. He said he was going to set himself and my mom and my brother on fire if Ceausescu wouldn't listen to him. Of course, he didn't go to that extreme, but he got to listen to him. But so that's, because of the situation of them trying to, of my dad helping other people and not giving up. He was just a man that would do what we do, and that's one thing that I love about watching everything that goes on here, in Massachusetts with Mara and all the other patriots that I see around, is we don't give up, and I love that, and that's what I see in my dad. But so we had my dad was put in the Nuss hospital. He got out, and when we finally got when they finally wanted to kill him is the reason why we had escaped communist Romania. But really, that's kind of the gist of my story. I don't remember too much. I was a little boy, but I'm just trying to go by what my brothers and sisters were telling me. Trying to remember everything that I wrote down on these cards.
So roughly how old were you when you left?
4. I was 4 when I left. I do remember, in fact, I'm glad you reminded me of that. I remember one time we were waiting in line. My mom and I were waiting in line. Now, my dad was well off because, he not only was he a welder, but he also was politically connected, and he had the money that people in communist Romania weren't supposed to have. But he just didn't like the fact that we weren't free. And so my mom and I are waiting in line at a grocery store for about 3 or 4 hours for flour, sugar, and coffee. And that's all you can get. Wow. And the funny thing I saw is now, about last week, I saw the same thing happen in, guess where? Venezuela.
Yeah.
Oh,
History's repeating itself, and people aren't paying attention. And if they are, they really don't care, because they want to be part of the higher echelon of communists that think that they're going to do a better job than the previous communists. The only successful communism is a dead communism. Because that's what people don't see, is that greed will always take over the people that try to get up in the higher levels of the communist system. And that happened to be Ceausescu's downfall. I was watching some videos, and the same people that took over and became the president of Romania were the communists that they just now were a democratic society, supposedly. And one of the videos I watched was when they they were shooting back and forth, but it wasn't the Romanian military that was shooting back and forth. In fact, the Romanian military was keeping cover for the normal Romanians there. They were making sure that, you know, if anything was going to happen, the normal people of Romania would win. And it was just an interesting thing to see, because back in 2003, I went back on a humanitarian trip. We started I was just a translator there. My pastor and 3 other pastors, we were starting a foster care system in Romania. Teen Challenge, I'm not sure if you guys have heard Teen Challenge.
Yeah.
They had started Teen Challenge there. Because what happened is a lot of these kids, after the revolution, the government didn't have any money, so what do? They just kicked them out. So your kids at 2, 3, you know, up to 18 are living on the streets. And so they have no money, so they're living in the sewers. Well, because they have no money, they would go steal from people so they can buy glue, and you can find a paper bag pretty much anywhere, plastic bag, and they would put the glue in the plastic bag and sniff it. And that was one of the reasons we went there, is to try and get these kids out of these sewers and put them into foster care systems. But I think that was the most rewarding thing, was that in the hotel we were at the lobby there, and we were able to sit down and we had prayer, and I'm like, I had my eyes closed, and I couldn't believe that in the place where we left, we were able to pray.
Thank
You know, whether you believe in God or not,
Yeah.
to have that kind of freedom
Yeah.
is just amazing. And that is what scares me, is that we are not going to have that freedom here anymore unless we stick up and we see more of these groups here, where I live, in northern Mass, in California, everywhere. And to be able to come up here and talk to you guys about this, it's just awesome. I really love it. Any other questions?
2 minutes, Sean.
2 minutes?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Can you tell us the story about when you were down praying in the cellar and the
Oh.
Nazis came in?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
Communists came in, rather?
There was, let me go ahead and stop this, and if you don't mind.
Oh, no.
Yeah, because you can only do 20 minutes at a time.